everybody. My name is Maria Gillen, and I'm an Irish storyteller based in Cork City in the very south of our little island country. Once upon a time, there was a forest. It was called the Unknown Forest, and it wanted it that way. It needed it that way. You see, the children of man can be detrimental to the children of the forest. Of course, there were exceptions. The Mana Fasa, the wise women. And one of these, a Ban Fasa, a wise woman called Sheila, Sean Nós Sheila, called Sheila, Sheila of the old ways, Sheila of the ancient wisdoms. She lived on the edge of that forest. If you looked in through her window, you might say to yourself, how does anybody live here? It's so small. She must be cramped in there. But when you opened the door and you stepped into Sheila's place, it was so comfortable, so comforting that you couldn't help but take a seat by Sheila's stove. And she might be humming a song or telling a story. And as you sat there, you took on her slow, steady pace, and the world seemed to disappear. People came with all sorts of ailments. They might say, Sheila, my knuckles are so sore. I might have arthritis. And she would rub her own heat into the bones of your hand, and you would begin to feel better. And if that did not cure it completely, she'd give you one of her cups of tea. And as you sipped from it, you could feel it doing good in your body. Or somebody might come and they might say, Sheila, I have busy brain. I can't seem to turn my brain off. Did you ever have busy brain where you're thinking, did I unplug the iron? Did I close the door? What do I have to do next week? If you came to Sheila with busy brain, she'd give you a blanket that she had made herself to put around your shoulders. And as she made your tea, she'd begin to hum. And as you drank that hot, sweet, secret tea, and as she sung, Shaheen, Sho, oh, lo, lo, Shaheen, Sho, Mokri, you'd begin to drift off, and you might jump awake and say, Sheila, Sheila, I fell asleep and you let me sleep. And she'd wink at you and she'd smile and she'd say, isn't that the very reason you came to see me? And she'd give you a package of tea and she'd send you on your way. And Sheila knew how to listen to dreams. One night in the middle of the night, she had a dream that the grandmother tree was calling her. Do you know what the grandmother tree is? It's that tree in the centre of the forest. And when she was a young sapling, she threw her seeds out around her and her babies began to grow. And as time passed, they pulled in their own partners, different species of trees, and the forest grew mature. And now it was an ancient forest. And the grandmother was calling Sheila in her dream. Sheila woke up and she put on a little shawl. She ran down the stairs. She didn't need her eyes that night, which was good because the moon was on its holidays and the stars had not come out. But she trusted the soles of her feet to know every inch of that forest. And she came finally to the grandmother tree, and she sat next to her and she laid her head on the bosom of the grandmother. And as she went back to sleep, she heard the grandmother's voice saying, Sheila, the farmers are fighting, and I am afraid for my children. Sheila began to come up through the layers of sleep until she became awake, and she said to herself, "What am I supposed to do with that? The farmers are fighting. How do I know the farmers? What can I do about this?" And like always, when she had a kesht olish, when she had a wise question, she let herself look into the middle distance. She allowed her eyes to roam the environment until she saw something that didn't fit, something magical. There on the top of a mound of earth was a white feather. She picked it up and she pulled her hand through that feather because she couldn't stop herself from doing so. And as the fronds opened up and as she looked between them, she saw every colour the earth had to offer. And she felt the change. She felt her shoulders begin to recede behind her back. She felt her strong arms become wings. She felt her neck stretch as she became a swan. She shape shifted up into the air, up above the trees, and when she looked down, she noticed how they leaned into one another, but never took too much space, how they seemed to whisper to one another, "There's so much we can learn from trees." She flew to the edge of the forest, and there she saw them, the fighting farmers, their faces red with rage, pointing at one another and pointing at the forest to say this would be the next place that they would clear. The heaviness of it, the heaviness of it pushed Sheila down, down, down through the trees until she was once more at the edge of the grandmother tree. "What am I going to do now?" she said, still with no solution. And as the Chandini, the people of old, she began to call on the elements, on Guh Nguiha, on the voice of the wind. "Oh, what will I do? Help me." "Tor cowardom," she said to the wind, and it began to sing through the branches of the trees. And it sang, to her ears anyway, "Call the people of the tees. Call the people of the tees." "Of course," she said, "all those people that were nourished by the fruits of this forest, I'll call them now." So she sat at the edge of the tree and she set an intention. When was the last time you set an intention? She began to allow her mind free. If you're there and if you're free, people of the tea, come to me. People of the tea, come to me. And they did. First one came into the forest saying, "Sheila, I had this amazing dream. You'll never guess. I dreamt you called me." And soon there was another and another and another, until there was a fine circle of people all around Sheila. "Find a feather," she said. "Find a feather." Some people, they dug in the mud for that feather. Other people, they took it from the back of a bird or the mouth of an animal. Some people, they put their hand out and the feather floated into their hand. For that is the luck of some people. And when they all had their feather ready, they looked at Sheila and she said, "Pull your fingers through the feather." So they did. And as they did, they felt the change, the connection to the one on the right, the connection to the one on the left, to the one in front, to the one behind. For they had become a great Murmation of starlings. And with one thought now, they rose from the ground, up above the trees, and they flew to where the fighting farmers were. And when the farmers looked up to see what was the shadow between the sun and themselves, they saw the mermaid. And as they looked, it took on a shape, the shape of a great shadowy heart in the sky. And at exactly the same second, all of the starlings beat their wings. And the heart came to life right there in the sky, right before their eyes. And the farmers smiled. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you smile if you saw something like that in the sky? And when they looked down, they were still smiling. And they smiled into one another's eyes. And they put down their tools. And they made a bargain to go home because they knew they had enough. Sean Nós Sheila, that is my story. I hope you liked it.